Ring that bell.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Those of you who have braved the weather, it was doing just fine when I left home, and by the time I got to Circle Center, it was a torrential rain, and I'm dry. It's a miracle. I don't believe we have any guests today. I'd like to thank everyone who contributed and helped out with today's program. Trina was in charge of the reception. David will be doing the pledge, and Steve the invocation down the road. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. David Young is here.
We can just do it from right there, also.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Steve, the invitation.
I'm going to be formal. Come up here.
You two match. You coordinate.
We call each other. First, I wanted to, when I walked in today, I was told that Jim Blythe passed away last night. So as part of our prayer, we want to remember Sarah and his family.
Yeah.
As they're going through this sad time. Heavenly Father, help us to remember that we are here to serve, not to be served. Remind us daily of the many who need to be helped. Guide us to be there for others and assist them in times of need. And we thank you for the blessing of this food, for our use, and for our service to you. Amen.
Amen. There are a few announcements. Roger has an announcement about the next lunch brunch.
For anybody available or interested, the 19th of July, 11:30, we're going to Iowa, starting in the middle down South Meridian Street. You're welcome to join us. Please email me, call me, and we'll come with us. We got it.
Thank you, Roger.
We need timing into the microphone if you want anybody to hear.
I'd like to thank Jean Ann and the Indiana Members Credit Union for their efforts in collecting school supplies for the Indy backpack attack. If you can remember, please bring donations to next week's meeting or drop them off at any Indiana Members Club Union location through this, let me see, 18th of July. Check the newsletter for more information about the volunteer opportunities. Next Thursday, Bob Hamill, a legend in IU sports, will join us to share highlights from his 50-year career. Look on your table for a listing of upcoming Zoom meetings. We won't have that at the Columbia Club until August 12th. Please register for the Indy Zoo field trip by next Thursday, the 15th. This is really exciting to get back at the zoo for a peek at the new alligator and crocodile exhibit. Thank you, Karen Burns, for your hospitality. That will be a really fun event. And we can explore the zoo, the new zoo exhibits and the zoo together. Be sure to get a paid sticker for valet at the registration table. And you can also sign up to be a volunteer at an upcoming meeting. Let's see. And Amy Subacon. Hi. Hi. Can you give us an update from the Kiwanis Foundation, the Indianapolis grant
Absolutely.
recipient? Thank you.
It's lovely to be with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for having me to share a little bit about how your generous gift to Horizons at St. Richard has made a huge impact this summer and actually before summer even began. So I have some handouts. If you'd like to take a look while I'm speaking, that is fine, but also I will just go through what we are, how we have used your generous monies. So Horizons at St. Richard's is primarily a summer program aimed at helping under-resourced students within the Indianapolis community. We're part of a larger national network and doing great work in a lot of communities across the country. But over this summer, students experience summer learning loss when they're away from their classrooms, away from their teachers. And it definitely affects students who do not have resources much more than their affluent peers, right? Instead of being able to go to museums with their families, going on great vacations, reading books and going to the library, often they're left behind. And so that's where we step in and what we've been doing and what we do all the time. So just a quick overview of our program for this summer. We typically have around 150 students in our program each summer. 10 different grades, pre-K through 8th grade. This summer we have 125. Some of our students, because of all of the learning loss that happened over the COVID pandemic with students being out of the classroom, their iLearn scores were much lower and they were asked to attend mandatory summer school. So we had some attrition from some of our students due to that. But we're still excited to have 125 students with us. We provide bus services for our students to be able to get to our program if parents do not have access to transportation. We also provide extended day programming for our students where they get choice clubs. Our most recent ones for our younger children have been a cooking club, and our older students have done a sports club, loom knitting and weaving and learning how to do weaving. Right now they're working on photography and collage, and our little ones have a choice between Legos and engineering and an art club. So we provide that for our students. We also provide food resources over the summer. So we are a summer food program provider, and we receive funds from the U.S. Department of Agriculture as well as from the Indiana Department of Education to be able to provide a healthy breakfast and a healthy lunch for our students. We also partner with Gleaners to provide weekend lunch boxes for students, and then we provide daily snacks. Our big focus is literacy and math, and so students spend between an hour to an hour and a half a day working on each math and reading standards. And so additionally, we partner with the JCC to provide life-saving swimming skills for our students. Many children of color do not have access to swim lessons or haven't even been in a pool before they come to our program. And they are much more likely to be involved in accidents involving drowning. And so it's a central part of our program to provide these swim lessons, and we're able to do that through our partnership with the JCC. We partner with other programs as well to provide enrichment, including artists, and that is in this packet for you to look at if you are more interested. We also provide field trips because so much of what makes students ready for college is just not what they read in books or the math that they do, but it's the experiences outside, right? And many of our students have never been to a beach. They've never been to a pool. Maybe they've never been to the Indiana History Museum. So we try to provide field trips to help that as well. And the other big piece this summer that we are diving into is high school and career readiness. And so we've had some great partnerships. Our students have been to Republic Airlines Lift Academy to learn about piloting and what it takes to be a pilot. And tonight they're going to the Ivy Tech Culinary Arts campus and getting to get a tour and then having a fancy dinner, kind of like we are all having for lunch today, which is something many of our students have never had before. But the reason I'm here today is to talk to you about our counseling program, which through your generous funding, we have been able to expand in the past year. We know that our students often have a lot of trauma in their lives, either from having lack of resources at home, being hungry, some are homeless or have experienced homelessness. Some might have violence in their backgrounds, and some just don't have quality experiences throughout the day to engage them. Our counselors are integral to making sure that our students are in an optimal state of learning when they come in each day to work with us. And so in the past, we have started some different initiatives and started some partnerships with Indiana Wesleyan University regarding having some of their interns be able to provide free services. Through your support, we are able to have a full-time licensed counselor on site every single day at our program. Part of what that counselor does is they work with students that are experiencing high levels of emotion and frustration, work them through that, give them the tools they need so then they can be back in the classroom. So thank you for that. Additionally, they help lead the team of interns that we have from Indiana Wesleyan University. We have 4 interns, 2 who work with our elementary school and 2 who work with our middle school. And that wouldn't be possible without you. And that helps these students have an even more impactful summer. The last piece of what your generous grant has given us is we have started to build out our year-round programming to include social emotional learning and counseling. And so we were able to start a series called Understanding the Brain, which was for both our students and their families. So families can be greater supports to their children at home with the same kind of strategies we use at Horizons to give tools around how do you deal with big emotions and how do you still be productive. And so thank you so very much, because our students are benefiting greatly because you believed in what we're trying to do for our students and help them be able to be ready to be productive citizens that know how to deal with emotions and can go out into the world and make a difference. So thank you very much. And I appreciate your time. I think it might have been a little over 5 minutes, but hopefully not too much worth it. Thank you. One last thing at the end, if you're interested in learning more about Horizons, or you would like to share about what we do with anybody that you know who might be interested, I've left some folders in the back, and please feel free to take one with you.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I need to know high school graduation pathways presentation. Can I link up with you afterwards to get a copy of that?
Absolutely. I would absolutely love to share that with you and what we're doing
My-
with that.
Well, my daughter's adopted. She's special needs, and I need that.
Absolutely. We have resources, and I can put you in contact with our site director who works with the grad program for IPS. Yeah, come talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
And so many things that you do.
Thanks.
Graham, you will be introducing our speaker today.
Well, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Great to be with you on this beautiful day out there. And sorry to hear about Jim Blythe. He actually was the first person I met in Indianapolis who helped guide me to this club. So definitely keep up with my thoughts. Before I introduce one of my favorite people in the world, tacking on to the announcement of Bob Hamill coming out next week to speak to us. I sent this blasted email to you all. Apologies, but it really means a lot if we had a big crowd. And he's coming up from Bloomington. He's 85 years old. Very, very famous sports writer. I know he'll be a great presentation. So if you're able to make it, I would really appreciate that. Now transitioning into one of my very favorite people. And before I talk about what she is going to speak about today, I'll give a little off-the-cuff introduction. She was my administrative assistant at Butler for several years. Like most great women in my life, she left me. She'll talk about what she's doing now. But if you look over at Butler and what's happened, she had a big part of a number of major projects, the renovation of Hinkle Fieldhouse, that new business school building that many of you saw, with just an unbelievable asset to me day in and day out. Just one of the best professionals I've ever worked with. Follow-up, courtesy, respect. God knows how many years I took off your life with you having to support me. But today, and one last thing, she is one of the most mentally tough people I've ever met. I'm not going to share her personal background. she might mention it, but I've never seen someone who has dealt with the things she's dealt with and just continues on through life, and I have great admiration for her. But today, she is going to speaking to us about her role with Kids Voice of Indiana. They've served abused and neglected children, and they focus on legal education, child advocacy, and family visitation programming. Jennifer handles their development. I figured after working with me in fundraising, you want to get out of that, but apparently you've been inspired to go on to bigger and better things. But she's going to talk about the organization's role as the new court-appointed special advocates provider in Marion County. CASAs are trained volunteers who help children impacted by the welfare or justice systems navigate a complicated judicial process, serving as their adult eyes, ears, and mentors who can help them access needed services statewide. They serve over 23,000 children in 88 counties alone, according to the Indiana CASA office. So with that, it is a pleasure to introduce Jennifer Dewitt to you.
Wow, that was quite an introduction. Usually I'm chasing around my 13-year-old twin boys, so my life is a little bit less exciting and a lot more muddy. So today is a really good day for my family. There's gonna be a lot of mud and bugs in my house later. So as he said, I'm the Director of Development for Kids Voice of Indiana. I took this role in January of this year. In January, we were what I would call a small nonprofit. There were 12 full-time employees. We had a handful of part-time employees that helped with our supervised visitation plan. And then in April, we were approached by the city to take over the CASA program for the county. We have now grown to 94 people. So about 600% growth, I'm figuring. So it has been a bit of a wild ride. But it has been absolutely wonderful. I'll hit on some different pieces, but I kind of want to give you a little bit of the history about who we are as an organization. We've actually been around for 35 years. So we started out with a set of core programming. So the first piece of that programming is we have a Guardian Ad Litem program. And what that means is in Marion County, a Guardian Ad Litem is put on certain cases in the legal system that involve potentially custody cases, guardianship cases, paternity cases, where there are issues with custody with the parents. And so the Guardian Ad Litem's job is to go in and kind of do the research for the judge. We go, we talk to the parents in the case, we talk to the child in the case, we may talk to doctors, nurses, school teachers, ABA centers, just to try to make sure that what we're doing is we're advocating for that child's best interest. We're not there for either parent, we're there for the child. So we actually, and I'm a trained GAL for Kids Voice, we actually have an attorney that represents us and we're a represented party in the case. So we then write up our list of recommendations after speaking to all the parties involved as to what we think the best option is for the child. It may be something that somebody else has asked for. It may be a mishmash of different things that different people have asked for. It may be something completely different. It just depends on what our investigation kind of shows is best for that child. So that's the first thing that we do. And through that, we are working with 600 to 700 kids at any time. In addition to that, then we have the Safe Child Parenting Time program. The Safe Child Parenting Time program is when you have a judge that has ordered supervised parenting time for one of the parents. There may have been allegations of abuse or neglect. There may have been other maybe substance abuse issues. There may be other issues why that's been ordered. And so there's a limited number of locations in the state, and there's even further limitations of places that offer multilingual support for supervised visitation. And so we offer those services. So we have at any time around 25 families that we support on any given month and provide about 100 to 120 hours of supervised visitation in any given month for those families. We have people that then, it's kind of like volunteering, but you actually get paid to do it. You come in and you take notes on the visitation. And we're really proud of the fact that we have a really great history of not having any other violence, any other negative items happen when they are here in our facility having that supervised visitation. It's a safe place for the kids. It's a safe place for both the parents because there may have been domestic violence between the parents in the past. We're really proud of that. We have rooms that are set up that have video players. They may have a couch so that they could watch a video together. It may be that they play a board game. There's a variety of things that can happen during that time. But it's such a key program. It's one of our hardest programs to get funded because people don't always understand why it's so important. But the fact of the matter is the judge has ordered the supervised visitation and the family has to find some way to make that happen. So we want to be the safest place possible for those families to be able to have that relationship develop between the parent and child. In addition, we also have the Children's Law Center of Indiana. And what this is, in the best way that I can describe it is a kind of repository for all sorts of legal information. We have a chief legal officer by the name of Katie Kelsey, who knows all things child law in Indiana. She is the resource to go to. Every 10 years, we rewrite the the CHIN's desk book, which is Children in Need of Services. So that's kids that are involved in the DCS system. And she writes the desk book on that. And then every 2 years, she updates that with all of the new case law that may have come through the state legislature. She updates it with current case law. And then they also maintain email and phone access for judges, for attorneys, for other interested parties, social service agencies that may have a part in a DCS case or in a child custody case, where they can call and ask, what is the current case law on this? What does current Indiana law say? And our individuals that work in the law center are absolute experts on what that is in Indiana. We're very proud of the work that they do. I mean, these are just some of the most amazing, incredible people that have so much information up in their heads about anything child legal wise. It's amazing to talk to them. As part of the Children's Law Center, we also have something that's called parenting time coordination. And parenting time coordination, the way that I've learned to understand it is it's kind of like mediation for parents that can't agree that the sky is blue. And it's, you know, when you can absolutely agree on nothing with your former partner, you get assigned an attorney. And we're very lucky through the generosity of the Eli Lilly Foundation that we are able to provide these services to modest means families. A lot of times this is something that is able to happen with higher means families, and families like this don't have this opportunity. So through their generosity, we have been able to help about, at any given point in time, we have 20 to 25 families that we help through that program. And all three people, so both parties as well as a lawyer, are included on all emails so that there's no kind of talking out of court about it. And it may be something like, this parent says that you're not getting the kid for this holiday. Well, it's supposed to be that other parent's holiday. So then, the attorney goes, no, parenting time guidelines says this is what we're going to do. And it's trying to keep them from filling the dockets in the court system and having that attorney kind of put down what the rules are and making sure they're following what parenting time guidelines or what any other legal orders in the case may say. So it's a really great resource for those families that need that extra support without clogging up the judicial docket with it. The newest thing for us is becoming the Marion County CASA contract holders. So we were approached in April about this. We started our contract on May 1st. So we literally went from 12 people in our office on a Friday to we hired 50 people in one weekend. One of the things that we were very, very, very determined to do was to hire as many people from the previous contract holders so that we made sure people still had jobs. Those people have families too, and this was not anything of their doing that there were changes made. So we made sure we hired as many people as we could from the previous contract holder, which I really think that that is something to be said for our CEO that wanted to make sure that those people were thought of and cared about as well. One of the great things about how we've managed to handle this transition is over 86% of the kids that we take care of, which is about between 3,000 and 3,500 kids, 86% of those kids have maintained the same Guardian Ad Litem, which is the person that kind of oversees their dockets of cases. And then additionally, within the remaining 14%, some of those children also have the same CASA on their case. So we have probably an excess of 90% that have at least one person that they have previously had on their case still with them. So, I mean, the last 2 months have been a whirlwind, but our focus has been making sure that our kids that we are tasked with making sure are advocated for, that they are taken care of. Now, as we've kind of gotten into those roles and we've gotten the operational things worked out, now we're looking at the future and what comes next. And so that's where a little bit of what I do comes in. So we're looking at doing some really fun things. One of the things that we're looking at doing is putting together something that I haven't come up with a great snazzy name for yet, but something like a giving tree. So there's things in the DCS system that there's just not money available for. So we want to be able to have a fund that we can set up that would pay for things like if somebody's graduating and maybe they live with grandma, maybe they are in kinship care and grandma's on a fixed budget and she can't afford to buy the cap and gown for graduation. We want to be able to have a fund that then that family can come to us and say, hey, we need $65 for that cap and gown. That's something that's important to me, is to be able to give some really positive instances in these kids' lives. Just as our previous person that was speaking came up here and said, a lot of these kids have gone through trauma that you just couldn't even believe. And you know, it's very important to me and it's very important to my colleagues that we are able to give these kids some real positives in their lives, because they haven't necessarily had a lot of positives. They haven't necessarily had a lot of people that have cared for them. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can as an organization, as individuals in that organization, to try to support them. So that's one of the things that we're starting to put together, and it's starting to look towards the future. The other area that we really have kind of circled in on is helping kids that are starting to age out of the system. There's kind of a mismatch of different programs and services, and this might pay for something over here, and it's very confusing even for somebody that works in this day to day. I couldn't imagine how confusing it must be to a 17 or 18-year-old. I have an 18-year-old at home myself. I could not imagine him trying to figure out the system on his own. It would just be overwhelming to him. So I can't even imagine how it must be for some of these other kids. So we're looking at how we can support those older students, the people that are just aging out of the program. Depending on when they came into DCS, a lot of them actually are eligible for 21st Century Scholars, which gives them the ability to attend any Indiana college, state college, for zero tuition. It covers all your tuition and fees. So trying to figure out how else can we support those kids, whether it's through us connecting them with internships, us connecting them with different things that that program requires as they go through high school, trying to figure out how can we work with them to make sure they can complete all of those requirements so they have that chance to go on. How can we develop relationships with people like the building trades, so that maybe somebody doesn't want to go to college, but they really want to be an electrician? How can we help with relationships to be able to do that? So it's really important to me that we try to look and figure out how can we not only give them the basics of what they need to be able to survive and thrive, but how can we help really get them to a much better outcome? He mentioned that I might mention a little bit of my personal story. So a little bit of my personal story is, you know, it kind of, when I say this, I think back to those commercials from like the 1990s, early 2000s of Hair Club for Men. You know, I'm not just the president, I'm also a patient or whatever. You know, I'm not just the development director for Kids Voice. I was actually adopted out of DCS when I was an infant. And I have, I was the third of 5 children born to a mom. We all have different dads. And I'm the only kid from the family that was put up for adoption. Everybody else was either in the foster care system or they were in kinship care. They would float between, you know, their dads, they would float between other family members. You know, now I'm 40 years old, and as I look at the biological family that I have out there, I'm the only one that graduated from high school. I'm the only one that went to college. You know, when I think about it, when I'm doing my job and as I'm roaming out and, you know, getting to talk to people about this, what could have happened if my brothers and sister would have had the support that we want to be able to give these kids? And so for me, that's really what drives me, to try to do the very best that I can for these kids. It's so important to me because I can see what happens when they don't have the right support, when they don't have the right people advocating for them, when the programming isn't there to be able to support them and give them the best chance they can. So that's why I took this position with this particular nonprofit, to be able to come and to be able to talk about why we need to help support these kids, why we need to give them a better chance. And so, you know, I'm a fundraiser, so obviously, I mean, there's brochures on your table. You know, feel free if you'd like to make a donation, that's completely fine, but that is not the main reason that I'm here. The biggest thing that makes our organization go is people. And in fact, when I wrote the values for my development team, the fundraising team, the one thing that I put on there that, you know, I kind of got some looks when I first put it on there. It said, people are our greatest asset, not money. And it's because our organization would not run without our volunteers. It is so critically important to the work that we do to have volunteers that care about kids come in and be trained as CASAs and be trained as GALs to be able to be on these cases and to advocate for these kids. To be a Guardian Ad Litem with Kids Voice, it's 7 hours of training, and then you are completely supported by an attorney that would be on staff once you get assigned to a case. When I was working on my case, I may spend 2 to 3 hours a week working on my case, and that may be a Zoom meeting with a parent, and then it may be a half an hour of going out and doing a home visit to make sure that they have things like running water, electricity, food in their fridge, those kind of things. It's not a huge time commitment, but it is so meaningful what you can do. I just completed my first GAL case that I've taken since I joined the organization. I kind of feel a little bit of a niche kind of place where I take on special needs kids. Having 2 special needs children myself, I have twin 13-year-olds with cerebral palsy. I live in that world on a day-to-day basis, so it's a place that I can really help those families that have a child that may have autism or may have other special needs or medical needs. And I have volunteered to take on those cases so that, since I kind of already speak the language, if you will, I can make sure that we're getting the right information from doctors. But we have so many cases where they would benefit so much from anyone that you might know, from your help, to be able to be willing to take on a case. And, you know, a case generally lasts somewhere, you know, 6 to 8 weeks or so. I think my case was open for about 10. There's some cases that draw on longer, some that are shorter. It's kind of, you know, it depends on the individual dynamics of cases, but it's so rewarding. And to become a CASA, which is with the kids that are involved with DCS, it's 30 hours of training. And then after the 30 hours of training, there are certain guidelines that are set out, because CASA is a national program and we have state guidelines that we have to meet for that. But once again, it's not something that is going to be a full-time job. It is something that you can do after work or through lunch hours, or, you know, however flex time you may have. But it's so rewarding to be able to be a part of these kids' lives and be able to actually feel like you're making a difference. And so that would be what my ask would be of all of you, is to consider volunteering with us. We have events that we do, so if you don't have the time to be able to volunteer as a CASA or as a GAL, we have events that we need help with. Having grown by 600%, we're going to be moving soon, so I'm sure there's going to be a need to have people help us with moving things and packing up boxes at some point. We always need people to help with wiping down all the toys and keeping people safe and healthy in our supervised parenting time program. So there's just a multitude of ways that you could get involved, but I would strongly encourage and ask you to consider, you know, to come and to give a hand and to make a difference in these kids' lives. And if you know somebody that you think would be a great match for us, that you think that this would be something that could be on their heart to be able to help with, you know, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody and everybody. You know, I'm passionate about this because it's personal. So I'm happy to talk to anybody that you might wish, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have. This has been a time that's the longest change for us, so if I don't know the answer, I will get you the answer, because I am still learning. It's definitely been drinking through fire hoses for the last couple of months. So, but happy to answer any questions you might have about our programming or what we do. Yeah.
Do you work out of one centralized office?
So
Staff and facility?
yeah, so we have an office at 127 East Michigan, so just up the road here. A lot of us, including myself, I've been to the office a handful of times since I started, just because working from home, kids, stuff like that. I have a home office up north that I work out of primarily, and then I come down here on an as-needed basis. But it kind of depends on what you do with the organization as to how much you're in the office, because we are so short on space.
So all the services are provided outside of office?
Correct.
Either
So
at home?
either at home, we do home visits when we are the CASA or GAL on a case. Supervised parenting time is the one thing that is handled at our main office, because that's where we have the parenting rooms and the ability to be able to do the supervision and whatnot. But everything else can pretty much be handled remotely. A lot of the court proceedings are still remotely at this point. Things are changing with the Marion County criminal justice system, especially as it pertains to family court. They're going through a lot of changes there with the new judicial center that's being built. So some of this stuff is a little bit fluid just because we're not completely sure how everything's going to change exactly and how that will impact how we are in the office, so. Yeah. Anybody else?
What percentage of CASA volunteers did you say carried over, assigned to the same case?
Sure, 86% of the GAL, so that is a person that is on staff, that is.
Yeah, I'm talking about the CASA volunteers.
So we
I
have.
know you said, I didn't.
Sure, so I don't have a specific number for percentage for CASAs. We had about 300 CASAs carry over from the previous contract holder and work with us. So with the CASA cases, not every CASA case has a CASA. Some of them have a CASA, some of them have the Guardian Ad Litem, which is a person that oversees a CASA when a CASA is assigned. So the GAL is somebody that's on staff. They may have a listing of 20 CASA cases that they're responsible for, and that's their full-time job. Whereas the CASA is only assigned 1 or 2 as a volunteer. But we probably have an excess between the CASAs and the GALs. With the GALs alone, we're at 86%, and I'm sure we're over 90% with the number of CASAs that are still on cases. So less than, probably about 10% have had to switch people that are working their cases.
Okay, well, the reason I'm interested in that is because I'm one of them.
Okay.
So I've been doing it about 2 years. So I got started under child
Yeah.
advocates.
Yeah.
And I will say that from my little vantage point as just one little volunteer, it seems like this transition has absolutely overwhelmed Kids' Voice because, you know, up until May 1st, there was an ongoing communication program, you know,
Mhm.
periodic emails, training opportunities, continuing training opportunities, and May 1st, that all stopped. And I'm not here to be adversarial.
No.
Because, you know, I've read about the financial issues and all of that, so I don't have any dog in that fight. But just from this seemed, the way it was handled is just very puzzling. And it seems like it is undoubtedly been very disruptive because I think for my training, I think
Yeah.
maybe at best 20 to 25% of DCS cases have a CASA volunteer. So the need is, you know, the need is tremendous. And just to make sure I was up to date, I went on your website this morning before I came here.
Yeah.
And you're not even, I mean, we're over 2 months into the new contract. And it still says, well, we're working on it and we'll let, you know, we'll have our website updated when we can start signing up new CASA volunteers. So it's very curious. So there's a question in there somewhere. I'll let you answer it.
No, I really appreciate you asking the question and giving the commentary behind it. It has been overwhelming. I mean, it's been overwhelming for everybody. I'm sure for the kids, I'm sure for all of the staff from both places. This was a huge transition. We were notified 7 days before the start of the contract that child advocates chose not to subcontract with us to continue services as they had been. So we had to go to our plan B pretty much overnight and implement it within 7 days. So I actually have the person on my team that was previously doing a lot of the CASA communications. Her main focus, because of the people that did and did not come over, has had to be trying to get as many of our CASAs onboarded as possible. So we had stopped training until we could kind of get a system set up to be able to start that training. We've just finished filling out the volunteer engagement team within the last 2 weeks, I want to say. So we will be having a training for people that are in the system already that had asked to have information about becoming a CASA or had wanted to participate in a class. We will have one of those coming in August. And then we will have additional trainings and additional ways to sign up starting after that. One of the things that I actually did as development director, they wanted to start doing a little bit more with our volunteer recruitment a little bit sooner. And I said, let's hold off on doing something that's, all gung ho, guns blazing, because we don't have the background set up. In the middle of all of this, I was doing a database transition so that we had a good workable database that I could communicate with people out of. That all happened, like I started doing the database transition April 1st, and that's a 2 months transition process. So I literally, in the middle of all of that, we also got this. So I'm trying to figure out, because I'm also your communications person. I'm your fundraising person.
Oh, okay, so-
Before May 1st, I was a little bit of everything. And then I inherited somebody from the previous holder. And then I also was able to hire somebody that can help with grants and can help with reporting. Meanwhile, I'm also tasked with building an entire development department where there's never been one before. I am their first full-time professional development professional on staff. It is a lot. And I've hired a very trusted consultant that I am very familiar with to kind of help me walk through, what do I do first? We have communications people that are trying to help us with our communications. Even, the lovely brochures I left on your table date, quite frankly, they're out of date. I'm literally in the middle of approving a new brochure to go to print. This is a lot all at one time, and we're grateful for anybody that can give us a little bit of grace. And I'm more than willing. I would love to sit down with you or take any other information from you as to how we can improve, because this is honestly our focus has been to try to make sure that every court case is covered. That has been our primary thing, as we're getting all these other operational issues into working order. I mean, we literally we onboarded and sent out 50 computers in one weekend, because that's what we had to do in order to get us up and running. One of our board members actually let us borrow the IT team from the company that he's CEO of. I mean, this has been like, and everybody on board, everybody's gonna row this boat. I mean, and everybody's attitude at Kids Voice has been, to quote one of our staff attorneys, woohoo, let's do this thing. That's been everybody's kind of just attitude about it, is let's get going, let's do this. And we know that there's been bumps in the road, especially as to how we're communicating with volunteers. Part of that has been, honestly, until June 1st, I did not have a good database to be able to communicate out of. We didn't even have the database that has all the Optima stuff, which is Optima that you guys put your case reports in. We didn't even have that day one. So, I mean, it's been, our priority was making sure that we were in court and being there for the kids, and then trying to keep as many of the staff there as we could, so there was consistency with staff, and trying to keep as many CASAs as possible.
Well, I'll give you some good news. Optima has worked fine for me.
Good.
No problem. I can log in, I can do what I've always done. It's all fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fantastic. No, it's definitely, we know that there's been hiccups, and we know that we need to do a better job of communicating. We honestly we need a little bit more bandwidth, and we're trying to get through everything that we can, while at the same time, it's writing new copies for everything. It's trying to figure out, how do we do this? We only have one person on the development team that's familiar with CASA. So I had never dealt with any of this before I came to Kids Voice in January, and I was the person when we took the contract that said, what's the difference? Like, I'm honest about that. I didn't know there was a difference between CASA and GAL until all of this came about in April. So I'm really lucky to have that one person, but she is the only person on my team that's familiar. So it's definitely been a challenge. This is my first time leading a team. So it's a challenge, and I really appreciate you bringing up your issues, and I will make sure that I communicate those back to my team and to my CEO, and we'll do a better job. That's all I can promise.
What is the difference between a CASA and a Guardian Ad Litem?
So in most counties, nothing. In Indianapolis and Marion County, there's two different versions of GAL. So there's the GAL and CASA program, which has to do with the CASAs, which is your DCS cases. And in that program, your Guardian Ad Litems are staff members that are in charge of a block of cases. And then they also have CASAs that are volunteers that are underneath them that have 1 to 2 cases. In Marion County, there has been a separate divide for family law cases. And those are assigned a volunteer Guardian Ad Litem, who then goes in as the advocate on those cases. So in most counties, there isn't a difference. In Marion County, the way it's traditionally been set up, there is one. I don't know how that may change as all of the other judicial changes are made in Marion County. But that's how it is right now, because I was confused about that too, so. But I saw a hand back there. Yeah.
But you've answered one of the questions, but another question and a comment. Kids Voice of Indiana applies a statewide footprint. The CASA contract is Marion County only. Can you describe a little bit
Sure.
about how the geography works? And the second thing is, my sister-in-law has been at CASA for about 6 years in Des Moines, Iowa, and says that it is the single most fulfilling, most impactful, and most I guess, generous thing that she's ever done. So I didn't know anything about it until I had several lengthy conversations with her, but it is just it's changed her life in many respects.
Yeah. From what little bit I've experienced, it is life changing. I mean, you learn a whole different level of empathy for the families and kids that you interact with. In terms of our statewide footprint, so our Children's Law Center is a statewide footprint. So literally, if you are a judge or attorney in Evansville, over by Cincinnati, Richmond, Terre Haute, Fort Wayne, Lake County, you can call us and the law is going to be the same within the state of Indiana. And we do get calls from throughout the state of Indiana, from lawyers, judges, and other professionals of the system. We do occasionally get calls from regular citizens asking, maybe they're going through a divorce, where is this pro se form? So if they're doing it without an attorney, where do I find this form at? We can direct them to that, but we can't give them legal advice. Our parenting coordination program is technically statewide. We have people coming from as far away as Terre Haute right now to take advantage of that program and are participating in it. So really a judge anywhere in the state could send, because there's very, very limited number of parenting coordination clinics that do what we do for the means that we do them. Somebody from any place in the state can actually recommend can recommend a case to go through our parenting coordination. Same thing with our supervised parenting time. We have people coming not just from like the 9-county kind of donut area. We have people from outside of that come in for the supervised parenting time as well. So, and somebody could come in from anywhere in the state, honestly, to do that if that's where they decided that was a mutually agreeable spot that they could do the supervised parenting time in.
And the CASA itself, however, is just Marion County.
For right now, it is just Marion County. Each county is county specific on how they handle it. It really varies by county, and I'm still learning about this. Some it's through the county itself, some it's through a separate agency. It's different in every county in Indiana. In Indianapolis, the county chooses who the contract holder is, and then that outside organization handles the day-to-day operations of it. Anybody else?
Thank you so much. That was very interesting. And let's see. We certainly have learned the important work that the organization does. And has clarified a lot, at least in my mind, and I'm sure in everyone else's, about the type of work that you do. And it's gigantic. We are going to make a donation in your name to 913 Sports. And 91 Sports serves 30, let me see, my eyes are good, 50,000 kids annually in Indy area schools through an innovative youth cycling program that promotes fitness and builds self-esteem. So with that, once again, a big thank you for your attendance and for your willingness to tell us all about your work. And we will see everyone next week.